it's unbearable for them. I don't really understand how they're coping. I mean, there is no other choice, so they just have to keep pushing. But the symptoms of complex PTSD are becoming very apparent. The disassociation, the depression, the self-loathing is getting really, really intense. Women are down. And we talk to so many women a day, and it is very time-consuming, but we do so because the mental health services are not adequate. No health services are readily available to them on the same level that somebody transferring in from the men's prison would receive. And half the time, you're just not taken seriously. I know a lot of women understand directly that if you complain, it's because you're overreacting or you're exaggerating. Imagine that, but in a carceral setting. It's so degrading that you get to a point where you don't even want to talk about it anymore. I think I had a broken ankle and I didn't report it because, it was going to be too much drama. And this is the kind of stuff, all the information, all the feelings you got from Tomiekia earlier. I hope this helps women understand that we're at a time in history where the last thing that we should be doing is tearing each other down, no matter what political party or belief system or anything. Nothing should be polarizing us at this point because we're in the fight for our lives. We're in the fight to just exist as women. So any of the infighting amongst us is contributing to our own erasure fully. It's like we're just hanging our own selves. The other stuff that we might not all agree on has got to go on the back burner until we get over this hill, because otherwise it's going to be the death of us. I think everybody has to really get on board with this and understand, like, it's either shoulder to shoulder or die. There's a lot of stuff I'm willing to overlook right now, and a lot of people that I'm willing to stand next to just as women, because it's what we got to do. We got to do it not just for us and our survival and the next generation, but for the women inside that are completely helpless and vulnerable, and they're just being erased one inch of themselves at a time. I just hear what's happening inside and I picture them just slowly disappearing. And it's completely unacceptable because all the things that we allow to happen to them is just a test run for what's going to happen to us if we let it continue. Women's prison is a ground zero for socioeconomic human experimentation. They've been testing on inmates for a long, long time. California eugenics hasn't stopped. It's just changed its name to the California Department of Corrections. It's unbelievable. I know a lot of people are unaware of the fact that the forced sterilizations and forced hysterectomies just barely stopped just a couple of years ago. So on top of these medical malpractices, the introduction of, or actually, I don't even want to call it an introduction. I think it's the elimination of women's prisons has done something mentally to the damage is almost irreparable, I think, because the level of abandonment and complete just disdain for women is heavy. It's so thick. I don't know what they could do to make up for it at this point. I'll figure that out later, but we're just going to keep pushing. I'm not sure what happened to Tomiekia, why. Oh, maybe that's her. Yes, it is. Hello. Hi, friend. You okay?
Hello?
Hi.
I don't know what's happening there.
I don't know. I was worried. I was like, oh no. I'm glad you called back. I'm glad you're okay. So you got chased out the day room. You're outside?
I went outside. He came outside.
No.
So I just decided to stay out here because if I go back in, he's going to come back in and mill around the day room, and I'm never going to be able to talk again.
Wow.
So at least outside, he knows that it's not so innocuous that he's leaning around me. So he'll go and, go talk to a different group of people or mill around away from me. But as soon as I go back into the more confined space where we have to be in close proximity just because of the structure, he'll be back. Because that's what they do.
Just stay in front of the camera.
Multiple times. So I already know to look for it. I already know not to be triggered by it. I already know how to conduct myself when it happens. I just have to move to a different space.
A different space that's right under the camera. Because I can't stress that enough for everybody to stay under the cameras. Well, even though they redact half of the stuff that I asked for when I do get the footage of the security cameras, that's so too much. So for those of you who are joining us, Tomiekia was in the day room speaking to us earlier. There was a trans-identified individual who came out just lurking because someone reported to them that she was having a conversation with us. And she went outside and the person followed her outside. So this is the level of silencing. It's just so heavy on them. This is what happens, and there's no recourse from staff. They've got to see what's going on. It's not like they're blind.
They do. But like I said, they're afraid to approach these individuals. Mm-hmm. They're afraid to have even a conversation. They're afraid to verbally reprimand. Like, there's only a handful of staff here are really here to do their jobs, and they don't mind being vocal about something that they see that is wrong. They don't mind holding these individuals accountable or saying something when they see something. But that's far and few between. Mm-hmm. There's not nearly enough of those staff in the way that they approach these situations in this institution to make it safe for women, especially me, because I'm a target.
Right.
They literally go out of their way to stalk me and to provoke me into confrontation. They conspire before. They work with certain staff members who either don't like me because I'm vocal and I won't roll over and conform. Mm-hmm. So they actually have staff that work with them to help them harass me.
And then this really became more of an issue when you became a plaintiff, huh? Was there like an increased amount of... Yeah. So also, listeners, for those of you that don't know, Tomiekia is a plaintiff in Chandler versus CDCR, which is asking for an injunction against the law that allows anyone to gender self-ID and transfer to the prison of your preferred gender. It has been an issue. I mean, I feel you. I'm suddenly a nebulous white supremacist, all kinds of stuff. You know, we're taking these hits. I know they're nothing in comparison to what you go through on a regular basis, but everybody who speaks up against this becomes demonized. It becomes targeted, and the gaslighting is so real. I know it's crazy in there. How do you...
I even have my mental health professionals trying to obfuscate me into thinking that I'm transphobic.
Ah, is that what's going on now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's what's happening at mental health. This is the place where I'm supposed to be able to go and talk to you about all of these different pains and sufferings, trials and tribulations these folks are putting me through. I'm supposed to be able to be transparent and open my heart up and cry and get it all out, but I'm being told that I'm rubbing people the wrong way. I'm being told that I'm complaining too much. Oh. I'm being told that I'm transphobic. He actually called me transphobic in our meeting. And then he told me that he was uncomfortable with the conversation.
Wow. Is that glass?
The professional told me he was uncomfortable with my conversation with him. And ended the meeting.
Wow.
So this is where we're at. Yes. This is where we're at. I don't have no safe space to go to and vent my own frustration, to get real help, to get real intervention, real therapy, real techniques to help me cope. I don't even have that.
That is insane. Follow me, guys. What's going on is when Tomiekia goes to see a therapist or for mental health services, which are supposed to be readily available to everyone, she goes so that she can get some respite from this constant psychological warfare. And they're telling her she's transphobic and then ending the meeting saying that the conversation is making them uncomfortable. This is where your tax dollars are going and being invested into.
Right. Yeah. So while Senator Weiner is trying to pull out all of these different techniques and variations of the same mental health legislation that's old and regurgitated to try to make this a better place for our mental health, it's nonsense.
Right.
It's not effective. It doesn't work. And what type of legislation will work when you have the actual clinician trying to cajole you into conforming? Nothing you put in place is going to work. No safeguard for mental health is going to work when you have the mentality of the professionals identifying with SB 132 and their cohorts.
Wow. And all of the outside organizations that are the strong arm of our elected state officials. Because
let me start with that.
There is this upcoming bill that is allegedly to revamp mental health care and make it more available for everyone, and to destigmatize the idea of getting mental health services, so you don't have to be triple CMS, which some people would say, oh, those are crazy people. But that's what your status is when you have to be on medication or see someone regularly. And they want to destigmatize that. So that's also another pro-man bill, because who is getting stigmatized for being triple CMS? Men. So again, this is more pro-man legislation that's backed by the Public Safety Committee and their minions.
Yes.
Wow. I can't believe that they said that to you. That's making me very upset.
So you want to give me help to be able to conform to something that's unconstitutional and violates my rights, violates my humanity, violates my rehabilitation process, violates my identity, violates my Christianity and my belief system. You want to use legislation that doesn't work to try to help me accept the fact that
2 + 2 = 5.
I have to be housed with male individuals.
Wow, this
the
is
irony.
So that's wild. That's really intense. I mean, who do I even complain to about that? I mean, that's not even ombudsman thing. The OIG, I mean.
Well, so you can have all the alphabet, write letters to them, have your families make phone calls to them, have your families. I've done it all. I've run the gamut, like as far as getting communication out and raising the alarm about what's happening here. I've done it all. I've talked to high-ranking officials about this, up into the chief of inmates appeals, and they all gave me the runaround to go back through the ABCs of organizations, to try to seek help, to try to write letters again, to make more phone calls. I've done it all. I'm in like this vicious cycle of continuously putting the word out about what's happening here, not only to myself but other women. And there's really nowhere to go. Like even our organizations that used to be there for us, they used to come visit us, they used to come and take our grievances seriously. Now they represent the men. Right. They have pushed us aside and made them their top priority client. Well, that's where the funding comes from. I mean. Exactly. So once again, it comes back down to dollars and cents. Whoever has the biggest pot of gold that all of these different organizations can take a fistful from, those are the people that they're going to be catering to with all of their resources and their services that were supposed to be designed for us. But even before this abrupt switch in, the value of human life, there were never any studies that were coming out of CCWF or any of the women's prisons that were giving accurate data or percentages of survivors and stuff. I think there's one study from the ACLU, like maybe from, 2015 or 13, and it had one valuable piece of information, which is that 90% of incarcerated women are survivors of sexual abuse. It doesn't seem to matter anybody, but it is a fact. I don't know of any other studies that have come through with adequate or legitimate information that could be beneficial to getting the kind of help that needs to be invested in legislation that's going to get basic human rights allotted to everybody. Not because I've said it time and time again from day one. You don't get rights by taking them from somebody else. That's not the way it works. Right. What about job placement? That's a zero-sum game. Yes. What about job placement? What about work? Because when we were there, you had a job assignment, you got a duck in. That's where you were going to work, whether you liked it or not. And it was going to take a lot of effort and a lot of talks and a lot of trickery or finessing in order to get that job changed. How is that now? Listen, these individuals come in here and they get the job that they want right away. You could have been on a wait list for years to get into a group or a job or a class or whatever the case may be, and they are right at the top of the list. Matter of fact, there isn't a list. because they don't like to leave a lot of evidence of how they're favoring the male inmates over the female inmates. So they just slide right into these positions that we've been waiting for.
And then I really need to touch on this because when I first read SB 132 and read that there could be like unlimited amount of bed moves and that anytime a man feels uncomfortable, he can request a bed move. And if it is for any reason denied, he must receive in writing the reason why, and it must not be related to his physical genitalia, sexual orientation, or criminal history. Now, what happens, like when I got a bed move, I was getting my ass whooped for months and I didn't ask for a bed move because I was scared. It happened after the neighbors were finally like, hey, this chick over here is going to die, you know, and the cops moved me out on their own. But bed moves were not easy to come by. They're difficult and you have to do so much planning. Oh, I got to do it on the day where this good staff works and that good staff works so that I could get this. How do they get bed moves?
Well, first of all, they don't want you in their vicinity. They can get you removed right away. Not only that, they can get a whole room, an 8-person cell removed just for one individual. I've seen that happen at least 3 times. If they don't want you in the building, they can get you moved out the building. If they want to move somewhere, they can move with these courtesy yard moves, which is super rare for a woman to be able to just get within a day's notice. You know, it usually takes months to get a yard-to-yard move. They can go to the program office and get a yard-to-yard move in days. So once again, everything that they need, everything that they want done, they have the staff assistance into making it happen a lot faster than it would ever happen for the women.
Friend, you want to call me back one more time and we'll close it out? We're usually in sync, so I'm guessing she's going to call right back just so that we can close this and leave you listeners with, you know, some little last nuggets of truth. So what the last thing Tomiekia was saying is that under this legislation, under SB 132, the Transgender Respect Agency and Dignity Act, anyone who has transferred under this policy can request a bed move, a yard move, single cell status. And you got to remember, these are 8-person cells in CCWF, 8-person cells. You can displace 7 other people if you want single cell status. You can get multiple moves in a day. And these are completely unheard of privileges within the Department of Corrections. So you can't even say that this legislation was written with good intentions because there is no good intention behind creating an untouchable privilege group. It would be different if Respect Agency and Dignity were something that people had in prison, but they don't. No one's ever had that. So to give it to a group that's been completely infiltrated by predators is horrendous and unthinkable, and it doesn't make any kind of sense. You can hear her voice cracking when she's talking. This woman has, not just Tomiekia, but all of these women, they don't have an outlet. They can't even talk candidly with their therapist or the psych because they're being told they're transphobic. They're being demonized for expressing themselves to a physician. You know, the guy ended her session early because he felt uncomfortable. This is not normal. This is the most anti-woman environment I can imagine right now. And I'm telling you, ladies, y'all are not prepared for the kind of erasure that these ladies are experiencing inside. It's not going to be pretty if we let it come to the free world. So we really have to dedicate some energy and some effort into making this stop. We have to keep it pushing and we have to keep making noise and continue to have these uncomfortable conversations with people that have no idea that this is what's happening, because it might be one of those things that has to happen one conversation at a time. I know it's awkward. You know, who wants to just walk up to people and say, hey, do you know there's men in women's prison? It feels funny, but it has to happen because no matter how uncomfortable we are, we're not as uncomfortable as Tomiekia.